Hello, beautiful listeners. I'm Abhi, the Comms and Design Manager of Thames Life. What a bright, beautiful, sunny spring day outside. We welcome you to the second episode of our Fierce Dancing podcast. A bit of virtual drum roll. Dig, 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 dig. We graciously welcome a local legend, the wildlife geezer of this borough. He has been involved in conservation issues since the 1980s. He's involved in campaigning and saving the green spaces in the Thames View and Barking Riverside area. This Fierce Dancing podcast is sponsored by People's Health Trust, and we've also got our resident social regeneration officer, Vishal, on the podcast. Welcome to the podcast, Vishal.
Yes, thank you. Welcome everybody. Thanks for listening again to Fierce Dancing, Thames Life, and thank you to Abhishekta, who's joined Thames Life as our new comms and strategic design manager. So looking forward to getting into some in-depth discussion with a local legend, Kevin.
Can you tell us a bit about your life, Kevin?
That's a bit difficult because there's a lot happened. But I was born and bred in this area. Played over by the marshes. My family come from this area. My grandparents come from this area. So you could say I know a fair bit about it. But you know, the thing about this area is lots of people all know very interesting things about the area, which is now called the Barking Riverside development. It's an amazingly interesting place. Many facets to it, and there's a lot to be told about it.
Yeah, mate. I mean, look, the reason that I call you a legend, obviously, is because if you've tuned into the Fierce Dancing podcast before, you'll know that I'm a local resident for the last 7 years on Thames View and Riverside. Obviously, for me, getting to know you, Kevin, I've heard about the stories with you and the Ripple Reach Out group and what you did in the 1980s to preserve local green spaces. That's why I view you as somebody who really made a difference and is still continuing to make a difference in the area. Do you think you could tell us a little bit more about how it was in that time when you were campaigning? What's your experience? What's changed?
Well, back then it was still largely marshland with these ditches everywhere, and the remains of old ash lagoons from the old coal-fired power station. And it was where we played as kids. And around about 1989, the developers decided to put forth their very first ideas about developing the area and turning lots of it into housing. And at the time, it seemed to have ignored that we had one of the best wildlife sites in London, certainly in the borough and in London. Because there's a weird thing happened because of this dumping of this fly ash from the old power station. It actually changed the soil chemistry around what is now called the Ripple Nature Reserve, and it's the only place in Greater London where these specialist plants had managed to get a foothold and colonise the area purely because of the presence of this old chemical composition of the fly ash. So we said to the developers, you should save this. We're very lucky to have it. And they didn't like that very much. And all sorts of things happened to I won't go into too much detail here. I don't think it'd be very appropriate. But eventually we got the Ripple Nature Reserve set up and everything was fine for a while. And there was a city farm there as well. Horses, chickens, goats, I think, were there. And it had a nice little link to the actual nature reserve. So maybe that's something we should look forward to recreating. Because the Ripple Nature Reserve is there now. It was shut for a long time. And it's now about to be reopened, Vish, is that right? It's not. There's a few little things that have got to happen first, but it's going to be reopened. So that's good news.
Yeah, it is. As you know, we've just got the architects Arkwood finished their design proposal, so we got a couple of hurdles to cross until it's opened again. But as a resident group of which Kevin and I are a part of, we're definitely pushing to have that open again real soon. So we're hoping that the stakeholders will piece it all together. I mean, what did you have to do all that time ago to get this designation of protected nature reserve? What was the shenanigans?
It was a bit of a fight because we assumed that the council would be all for it, but it wasn't quite like that. So we decided to have a sort of protest, very well ordered and dignified and well organised protest. We had over 200 people. The local MP, Joe Richardson, the amazing Joe Richardson, who was brilliant, local MP. The MP for Dagenham then joined us, and the European MP, Carol Tongue, joined us. And the leader of the council came along just to find out what we were up to. He thought he'd better put in an appearance. And we had a television crew come down there. And there was 200 of us sort of giving a guided wildlife walk, really, pointing out the orchids and why they were important. And I think that was what really made them take notice when they realised that we were going to campaign and go on demonstrations.
Yeah, wonderful. I mean, could you tell us more about who was in your Ripple Nature Reserve, Ripple Reach Out group? Sorry.
Oh well, yeah.
Who are the characters?
I hope he's listening to this. I don't know, Dennis, if you're there, here it comes. Dennis Vickers, who literally wrote the book, not just about the Ripple Nature Reserve, but about wildlife in Barking and Dagenham. He literally wrote this massive book. It's like 2 inches thick and it's quite heavy. And there's a copy available in the borough's archives and in the local libraries. And he knows everything about the plants and wildlife of the area. And he writes a lot about these special marsh orchids. One of them's called the Southern Marsh Orchid, I think. Is that right, Dennis, if you're listening? And the other is called the Common Spotted Orchid. And there's 2 others. There was a pyramidal orchid and a bee orchid. These are amazing plants. They're not like, if you think of orchids, you know, when you go to the florist, they're these big showy things. But marshland orchids, they're like that, but they're tiny. And they're absolutely beautiful. And no other place in Greater London were they found. We're very lucky to have them in Barking. So we were trying to say to the local council, please, you know, it's in your interests. It's not like you have to save them as a concession to do us a favour. It's important to your development, and you should make them a feature of it as something that makes the development special. Like, this is, come and live at Barking Riverside. This is where we've got this nature reserve where these extremely rare plants grow. What's wrong with that? Why not?
What do you think are the major environmental challenges facing this region?
There are the thing about this region, where we are now, sitting right now, just a few hundred yards outside the window. We're right next to the Barking Riverside development, which I suppose a lot of people must have heard about by now. The developers themselves call it the largest, most prestigious housing development in Europe. Okay, it's massive, and it's got a number of problems. It's got some kind of unique soil characteristics and the chemistry, which I've just told you about.
The fly ash thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this massive 400,000 kilovolt electric pylons marching across the site. That's another problem. They've got a problem with air pollution here, which we can unpack and talk about later at some other stage if you'd like. But the most important thing which I want to talk about is we also happen to have the best wildlife site along the River Thames. It's called Footpath 47.
That's right.
And the Greater London Authority, who ironically are one of the major shareholders in the Barking Riverside development, designated it as one of their sites of metropolitan importance for nature conservation in London. That's very important because it means it's not just important here locally, but it's important to London Borough, Barking and Dagenham and the whole of Greater London. It's that important. And we have it here for free. We don't have to create it. It's already there. And would you believe it? It's also where the developer wants to build expensive, high-rise, 30-story apartments with expensive balconies that overlook the Thames. Now you might think that there's a natural conflict there. You know, you can't have wildlife conservation, and then you can't build these balconies. But I've been trying to say for decades now that it's not necessarily the case. You can actually integrate these things and manage to preserve the very thing that makes it a unique and characterful site, which is the presence of that wildlife. And you can do that by landscaping buffer zones, giving nature a bit of a breather, going back a little bit further away from the shoreline, so that when you do charge those people a lot of money to have this balcony over the Thames with their red wine and they're parking their BMW outside, their friends have got somewhere rather nice to look at with their expensive binoculars. They can say, oh, come and see my lovely apartment on the Thames with an amazing balcony with a view overlooking the Thames. Oh, do come and see us. And the reason they can charge that amount of leasehold or investment potential for it is because it's got that lovely view. But if you build too close to the shoreline, all you're left with is a load of mud and downwind of an aggregates wharf and downwind of a waste incinerator. Seems absolutely crazy to me that if you've got something which is a jewel in London's wildlife crown, you don't make use of it.
True. Major example of how prime design should be built around planet and people rather than profit.
You've got to start thinking like this, as if nature is separate from us. We are part of nature, whether we like it or not. It's not an opinion. We are absolutely woven into nature, and if we don't get this soon, we're going to be in an awful mess. I mean, for the last 30 years, we've been arguing on the basis of 10,000 units at Barking Riverside. That was a result of scientific analysis, ecological, environmental, consults reports, all sorts of environmental assessments flying backwards and forwards. And it'd been a hard lot of work, decades of work. And right at the flipping last minute, new Labour government gets elected. And the mayor says, that this massive housing target's needed. And they decide to double the density of Barking Riverside from 10,000, which we had troubles with and we were struggling with, but overnight, a purely political decision to add another 10,000 units, and all that science and data is swept aside for the sake of purely political objectives. That's just stupid, right? Come on.
I mean, recently, 2 weekends ago, Nature on the Front Line was a nice event that you spoke about, the importance of the ecology of the site. Do you want to elaborate further on what you spoke to local residents about, even some from afar as well, transition towns?
Yeah.
Yes, we had some very interesting visits from many places.
People came from Tooting, didn't they? Tooting, was it Tooting?
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I'll tell you that story about the opera singer.
Yeah.
I was on the shoreline once, just enjoying it, and this elderly senior lady came along. Lovely, lovely lady. And I talk to people and find out what they think about the place. I don't tell them what I know and where I'm coming from. I just want to get a good, accurate understanding, fresh, of what they think of it. So I said, hello, enjoying the weather, what do you think of her? I lent her my binoculars, and I knew straight away from her accent she wasn't from around here. She talked rather like that, from Lothian, She'd been privately educated. And she said, oh, I just came on the Thames Clipper from Westminster. I said, oh, Westminster? Yeah, that's nice. And she, well, actually, I come from Hampstead. I'm a retired opera coach. She teaches opera singers at the Royal Guildhall School of Music.
Sopranos, tenors, basses.
Yeah. And she was extremely interested in my accent because it's the voice. And she said, could you sing for me? And I thought, no, a bit intimidated, singing for someone who's a voice coach at the Guildhall. Lovely lady. I hope she's listening. Anyway. And she said, so I said, okay. So I sang her Bubbles.
Oh, yeah?
Right, I said, I'm forever blowing bubbles. The old West Ham song, right?
Of course.
Pretty bubbles in the air. And she was absolutely, you could see she was riveted by this and studying my accent and the sort of way I pronounce the words. And she found this fascinating. We got on like house on fire.
Did you tell her about the shoreline or?
Well, that's the point I wanted to make.
Yeah.
It kind of underlined the point that it's that thing that the GLA said about its designation. It's site of metropolitan importance for London, nature conservation for London. And it showed that people from all over London, I mean, Hampstead is the other side of London. She'd come all that way to visit this site. Okay? Now that tells me if the developers were smart, they'd sit down and think, let's slow down and think again about this because we can do something really clever. And you know what I'd like? This is what I often say to the planners and developers. I want them to come back in 20 years' time with their children and their grandchildren, pull up in the car and say, see where the wading birds are on the mudflat, see the shelduck and the red shank and the cormorant, and see the way they merge into the shoreline, and see the way the landscaping goes seamlessly into the development. Your dad did that. Your auntie did that. And they're proud of what they achieved. I want them to be proud of what they've achieved here. Better still, I want them to send other planners and architects from the world, from across the world, to see how it's done in Barking and Dagenham. But I just got this horrible feeling that they're not listening.
How a people and nature-focused site is actually the cusp of what could be done, and the anchor of viability of the site is based on that, you mean?
Yeah.
There's a number of birds of which you've told me about in the past, littoral skylarks, curlews,
cormorant.
Yeah. I mean,
Cormorants are there all year round. We've got a resident population of 70 shelduck who feed the mudflats. If you go there, I think if anyone wants to visit the place, they'll understand straight away. You don't have to read any books or even know too much about wildlife. If you just go there, you get it straight away, right? Because you see this huge mudflat, and what it is, you've got to think of it like a bird restaurant. The birds on there have got specially designed beaks to feed amongst the mud and sift out the tiny tubifex worms and crustaceans, and they feed on the mud. And better still, it's on a massive migration route for birds from Northern Europe going on their way to Africa. They stop off and feed at parking. It's a bit like us, on a long car journey up the M1. You might decide halfway through to pull in at the motorway services and use the loo and have a sandwich and a cup of tea and rest for 5 minutes. That's what birds do. They need something to rest, feed, have a little bit of a nap, and then carry on to Africa. And I keep saying this, we've got it there for free. Why on earth the developer? I mean, if you speak to developers, they'll say something. Oh, well, we have, we've taken all this on board, but that doesn't quite answer this problem of the last year's doubling down of the density from 10,000 to 20,000. How on earth are you going to have 20,000 people trampling all over the place with their dogs off the lead, frightening the living daylights out of all the birds? It's frustrating, but we're going to keep on, because the facts don't go away, science doesn't go away, data doesn't go away, and I keep hoping that the developers and the planners will start to think along the lines of, we want to be proud of this place. Now, when our circus leaves town, we want to make sure that what we've left behind is something that we can be proud of. That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Exactly. It should be a win-win situation for everyone.
Yeah.
Nobody should lose.
Yeah. Why not?
Exactly.
Why not? That should be our slogan. Why not?
Yeah.
Right. So you've covered how the ecosystem has changed over the past few decades, how the developments have been impacting the local ecology. Can you tell us a bit about what the residents can do to support the local biodiversity?
Well, look, a lot of residents already know this. Those of us of my age who played over there and had adventures over there of all sorts, they already know, and they do come on our walks. But what you can do is stand up for your rights. And what I mean by that is, when you're asked to sign a petition, when you're asked to write in just 2 sentences. When I say to people you have to write in an objection to a planning application, they for some reason think it's got to be like loads of pages long. It doesn't. It can literally just be 2 sentences. So when we ask you to write in an objection, just take 5 minutes out of your time. 5 minutes, for Pete's sake, right? And write it down and send it in as an objection to a planning application. Or if we hold one of our events, They're not grim, serious events. They're a lot of fun. There's music, there's food. We have a great laugh. Everybody's singing and dancing, and it's a lovely place to be. And so it's enjoyable as well. You can have some fun. Campaigning and demonstrating to make sure that we, the residents, the community, have the sort of place we want to live in, can be fun. It's not serious. It can be fun. And we can make our point with fun and laughter.
Yeah. What do
Why
I think
not?
of that?
Why not?
Yeah, we need some more of that. We need to have more fun.
More of
we need
that.
to just get a few more people enjoying the space over the summer and just, sometimes it's a bit easier said than done. But you've run in the Footpath 47 group, and that's really helped the situation, always down for a good bit of fun. What do you think you want to see next on the shoreline for a bit of enjoyment for the people and for nature?
Maybe
rejoice
special
in,
bird watching events, maybe.
Yeah, because that was something that we thought we would do, and that's something that you did, right? Did you manage to get any people to look at the binoculars and spot any rare birds on the day? Or
I had one little kid because I had some binoculars there, and I won't mention his name because it might embarrass his parents. But he got there's a scope. It's like a big telescope, massive big thing, and I had it on a tripod, and he was wheeling it around. He got more fun out of whizzing it around than actually looking at the ducks. But anyway, he did look at some ducks. Got a real close-up view of the shell duck feeding.
I do go over there and see a lot of bird watchers just walking around.
Well,
enjoying.
here's the thing: that the bird watchers they jealously guard it because they don't want the oi polloi and everybody to, because it spoils their fun, right? But that just emphasises how important it is. But if we're going to save the site, we've got to have people using it appropriately. So walking, bird watching. That kind of thing.
We've got to get it together, don't we? We need to make sure that everyone is in tune with each other and trying to preserve the shoreline.
But, it's an important point you make that we must, like we've said about the developers, we mustn't be guilty of ruining the very thing we're trying to save. So any walks that we do have to be extremely well organised so that we're mindful of some of the issues. For example, this few months happen to be skylark nesting season, right? And it's an offence. It's under the Wildlife and Countryside Act, 1981, to disturb a nesting bird. Now, this place is so important. The skylarks are nesting right now, so that's like a good example. So what we would try and do is probably try and avoid having a walk near them at that time, so they're not put under stress. A massive thing is to say that any dog walkers arrive, they keep your dog on a flipping lead. Because a dog, what it will do, it's not the dog's fault. A dog will do what it naturally does. If you see the signs that keep your dog on the lead, and you keep the dog on the lead, and you walk down the shoreline, it's quite a long shoreline, it's 2.5 kilometres, and you think you're outside, and you think, I'll let the dog off the lead now, nobody's watching. A dog will go and chase off into the grass, and if it sees a duck, it'll go and terrorise a duck and kill them, right? It's not the dog's fault. It's just doing what a dog can. It's the owner's fault for not keeping on a flipping lead. So that's something that people should be aware of.
We need to make people aware of these things. Yeah.
Happy to see you there walking your dog. That's great, and walking.
Yes.
But be mindful that this isn't just any footpath. It's the site of metropolitan importance for nature conservation.
Yes.
It's a very important site, one of the best in London. So enjoy it by all means. We want to see you there, all over London. We want London, but we actually want you to be careful and respectful as well.
We definitely need some nature-centered branding around this place.
Why not?
And I believe that you're the lady who's going to make that happen, right?
Hopefully, let's see.
I thought she was a dentist.
Kevin, can you recommend a place or two nearby for observing native plants and wildlife?
Well, if it was open, the nature reserve would be great, wouldn't it? But when do you know when it's going to be open or not? I don't know. Very soon, you said, didn't you?
There's a lot going on with that still. But yeah, I think we've got the go-ahead to do a small community event, of which I'm not sure looks like just yet. We've got to plan that in, but we definitely know that Roading Rubbish want to do a litter pick there.
Yeah,
so, yes, Marion, Thames Life.
I mean, to answer your question, I mean, not all the best wildlife sites are, contained solely within the nature reserves. I mean, the Ripple Greenway over the back here. If you've studied nature and if you listen to David Attenborough, you can walk along and see any number of wild plants in that little, we call it the ditch, the Ribble Greenway. But you get coot and moorhen there, you know. So although some antisocial people want to dump the shopping trolley in there and various other things, the wildlife lives there as well, and it's quite a pleasant place to be. And that's just literally just across the back of this building, isn't it? The Ribble Greenway. The Chase Nature Reserve is a very good place, which is open at the moment. Eastbrook End.
And just a quick question for you, Abby. How would you put nature-centred design into raising awareness about the Footpath 47? I mean, obviously, you co-organised the event for Nature on the Front Line and bring in some brilliant performers there, for example. What do you think could be done to raise more awareness about the special part of that site?
I guess Gavin already answered a bit of that question. We could have more nature-centered events like bird watching, co-designing a bird watching event, and maybe a session for kids to recognize what's the kind of soil, what's this plant, what is the benefits of this plant. Call in a herbologist.
Do you know what we could do? I've just thought something.
Yes.
Something you said sparked it off. That part of the Thames where Footpath 47 is gets an amazing amount of vessels and ships sailing by. We get big like gin palaces. They're massive, blocks of flats on afloat. They are, and little service vehicles. Police do their practice drills up there. There's the Thames Clippers up and down, little sailing ships, all manner of cargo vessels are up and down there. So maybe what we could do is, in conjunction with doing a bit of bird spotting, we could do a bit of ship spotting.
Yeah, that's another good idea. Yeah, one that I would never have dreamt of, I don't think. What about like imagery that raises people's emotions or memories? I know you spoke about the World War II beacon, for example. So, is there anything that's important, particularly over there?
Yeah. We've got these two. We call them drum and point, and we did a lot of research on them. And they figure largely in the memory of people around here. Because, as I said before, we played over there, and that's where we used to congregate or throw stones. For those of you who don't know, drum and point are these riverside navigation beacons. They're about the height of a house. It's a big metal pole with a kind of cylinder on the end, okay? And they are navigation markers. And in olden days, these ships would come down the Thames and line up the bow or the stern in line with these navigation beacons to make sure that they're in the deep part of the river channel. Pete Miller has got a lovely story about the drum and point being used for artillery, for making bearings with artillery guns, because there was an artillery company practicing over there as well. So there's a lot of history, and we all know this, and they're part of our shared memory. They're part of our cultural memory, right? And just recently, in like last couple of days, the developer put out a consultation statement, and they said this crazy, ridiculous assumption. They said they are not of any community value. Excuse me, the community decide what's of community value.
Absolutely.
If it's an old gate post, an old street sign, a lamp post, anything where they used to congregate and they feel some affinity for, that makes it of value to them. It might not be of any value to consultants, but who the heck are outside consultants to say that something is not of community value to the community? It's one thing to make a scientific statement about data, which you can verify against other metrics and say that this is or is not special. That's a different matter. But to say that the community don't think this is of a community value, we the community, we decide what's that door, the entrance to this room. If we think that's special and it means something to us, then it's of community value, right?
True.
Yeah.
It evokes an emotion in the community, and so it's not up to somebody else to decide if it should be.
I think they went a bit too far there, quite frankly.
No, you didn't, because meaningfulness.
No, I think they went a bit too far.
Oh, yeah. It's not their responsibility or mandate to even think to do that.
That's what I meant.
Other than getting paid. That is always the contention, isn't it?
Touched on another. They're paid for by the developers, right? So, I mean, I don't doubt their scientific integrity, but you'd be naive to think that if you're paid money by a developer, that you're not aware of the fact that you might skew things in favour of their argument rather than our argument.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly that. I mean, maybe you could just tell us a bit more about some of the memories you have with the coal-fired power station, the pulverized fuel ash, what it was like going over there with your mates.
I'll give you the good version, shall I? I'll give you the one that's easier to hear, yeah. Because there is another story about that. But so what I'm going to tell you is about so back in the day. I hope loads of people listening will remember this. We had these. They were called ash lagoons, and they used to when you burn coal at the old coal-fired power station, a lot of ash is produced, and they've got to deal with it. So they got a bulldozer and they made these big square lagoons, about the size of 2 football pitches, and then they mixed the ash with water into a slurry and pumped it into these ash lagoons, which became lakes. And what me and my chums used to do would get some scaffolding boards and a few 30-gallon oil drum cans, lash them together, make a raft, and go sailing on the old ash lagoons, thinking we were pirates, and like throwing stones, because this